I'm Boston 2%, author of Fire and Ice, the Meth Bible, and I'm chatting with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Boston 2%.
How's it going, Bill? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for taking the time to come on my show. I appreciate it.
Nah, I'm honored, man. It's gonna be a wild ride as always. So
definitely, you got some wild stories. I've seen you on a bunch of different podcasts telling your stories. I was like, wow, this guy's got something pretty crazy that you been through what you've been through and you came out on the other side. A lot of people don't make it.
Yeah, and pretty crazy, no pun intended. I did state hospital time in a mental institution for the criminally insane. I mean, it just goes on and on. But man, it's a bird's eye view. It's an experience like no other, man. It's a wild one.
So where did it begin for you? Where did your life start?
Well, I grew up in a town called Reading, Massachusetts. Really, the story all begins back then under an icy covered bridge, okay? I always start this story off the same way. I was born on January 31st, 1982. The devil tried to kill me that day, and I've been fighting for my life ever since. And I grew up in an alcoholic home. There was a dark mental illness present in that home, too. A lot of childhood trauma, things like that. And we were under this icy covered bridge with a stolen half a joint. And I was probably, I think, about 13 years old, and flip went the big. And it was the idea where getting out of myself was the answer to all of my problems, right? Typical teenage story. We were a band of ragtag wannabe comedians, kids from broken homes, the box of misfit toys, right? And we all gravitated towards each other, and we started smoking weed every day and hanging out. And immediately I could see that I was an addict in every single kind of way, right? But the summer going into 9th grade from 8th grade, I was in Reading, Massachusetts with one of my best buddies. We were under this beautiful canopy of oak trees in the woods. And we had one of those half gallons of like Underwood and Pierce, like $10 bottles of vodka, the big ones. Yeah, they were $10 back then anyway. And we mixed it with some orange juice. And I remember, and this story, there's a story based on this in the Meth Bible. I remember when we mixed it, and I took that first swig of alcohol is where the whole thing really changed. I remember hitting it in my stomach, and I remember thinking a thought out loud in my head. And I was like, that's what I'm fucking talking about. That I want to feel like this the rest of my life. Like all my childhood trauma drained like water in a bathtub. You think you're more interesting, you're funnier, and it was just like real romanticized. And I was an everyday vodka drinker after that day at 14 years old, full-blown alcoholic. So, I mean, I'm just starting my high school career, Bill. And already, I mean, I'm totally out of control. And I mean, what are you for? You're 14 years old. You're like a baby, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm a very extreme person. Like the Meth Bible is like a 716-page book, right? So when I do something, I do it big, whether it's good or bad, right? So, I mean, I went from that at 14. Those style pills like Adderall and Ritalin, all of that at 14. Klonopin. I mean, it was just like off to the races, pedal to the floor the whole way, right? I was a baseball player, everything. All of that stuff was out the window, and it's like childhood trauma is really the gateway into addiction. It's like that's where the devil really opens up those wounds and uses them to get and weave into your life, right? I'll fast forward a little bit, right? Like, so I started like feeling the consequences of addiction. I started losing stuff, pretty much dropped out of high school. I have like a 6th grade education. I never really went to high school. I was there, but I left at like 16. I was working at a gas station, but I had a brief period, I was a fat kid, and I had a brief period where I was like, okay, I'm going to change my life, and I'm going to start training and everything. And this story will be funny later on, but I got it in my head. I had this new dream of being an undercover narcotics officer for the Boston Police Department, right? We were in a suburb like 10 minutes north of Boston. So I start training. I'm going to the gym. Like I'm doing like 3 hours a day in the gym and running and everything like that. Got in great shape. I went and took the ASVAB test, that pre-military test, right? And by chance, I qualified as military police. I was going to go in the National Guard. They were going to ship me out to Delaware. I was ready to go. But at the very last minute, I decided, you know what? I'm not going to go to the military at all. I'm going to move out to Vegas and become a stand-up comedian instead, right?
How old are you at this time?
I'm like 19 years old. The year was 2001. So this is August of 2001. So the military stuff was like June, July. I was leading up to it, right? And then in August, I decided, okay, I'm going to go out to Vegas. And I had some friends out there who owned a business, their older brother and all that. So I took a bus 3,000 miles across the country. I had $50 in my pocket and a bus ticket. Back then, it was like, there was no security. I had like a cooler with like a 6-pack of beer. I'm like a young kid, you know, traveling the country. So I get out there. And then 2 weeks after I'm there, the event in September of that year happened. We all know what happened in September of 2001. So the towers, all of that happens. And, I fully believe that God used that. I believe it was like the Holy Spirit nudged me not to go into the military because he had a different part of hell for me to go into. Okay. A lot of those people didn't make it back. I don't know what would have happened, but I just feel like God saved my life with that event, right? I picked up drugs. The first time I did ever was in Las Vegas during that time period. And that was back when it was like that crystal clear window pane. You take like 2 hits and you'd be up for a week on that stuff.
You didn't know about that when you were back in Mass, did you?
No, they didn't. See, back then, it wasn't even on the East Coast. Never heard of it before. And I was like smoking out there. I was on one bad. Never took the stage, not once. I was full on back in addiction, completely out of control. Okay. So I ended up moving back home about a year into that. I moved back home. I moved in with my dad. I was like a driver for his company. I would drive them dudes around to the bars at night and everything like that. But I was a really bad alcoholic. Okay. It was like the depths of despair, falling downstairs. I mean, drinking, a case of beer at a time or a half a bottle of vodka, and I was waking up with bruises. I was a mess. Now I'm like 21 years old, right? So I turned 21 years old on a Friday night, and I ended up in my first drug and alcohol treatment center on Monday morning, one of 9. And I went to the East Coast, some of their best. I was in like McLean Hospital. Like, I think James Taylor wrote Fire and Rain or something in there. I don't know. But I started going through that mill, and I'm just getting exposed to people that are doing harder drugs, shooting up, things like that, right? We end up moving to Corpus Christi, Texas. My dad he got divorced and his career was wrapping up there. We moved to this city called Corpus Christi, Texas. They call it the Sparkling City by the Sea. The name of that city quite literally means in Spanish, the body of Christ. Okay. It's very interesting. Like the whole story of the Meth Bible unfolds in a city after Christ's namesake, right? I mean, this is a story about, it's a story about the devil. It's a story about redemption. And it's told through the eyes of a meth addicted cab driver. Okay. It's a very unique experience. It was a wild ride, and we'll get into that. But now I pick up a bad habit. The drinking continues for a few years, just flashing through all of that. I ended up like at 25, I met a girl. I was in a brief period of sobriety. I'm exposed now because of the treatment to all the 12-step programs. So they planted a seed, like that's where you go when you're really in trouble, right? I know I'm talking real fast. It's a long story. So if you want to jump in, just let me know, okay?
Yeah.
All right. But I get exposed to these programs and I'm like, okay, this is the first time like I'm even hearing about God. Never heard about God in my house growing up, but we were Catholic, but my dad drank a lot. He was a womanizer and like he'd high five you if you were cheating on your wife, type of deal,
Yeah.
So it was like we were best friends. We were like drinking buddies more than anything, right? So I'm living with him. I have this brief period of sobriety. I meet a girl. She's got a little girl. And I'm like, what do you do at 25 years old? You get married, right? You get married. That's what you do. You start a family. So I was masquerading as a normal person just long enough to where I could take my first set of hostages, So I'm in this marriage. We start having children. I end up working in this career. I get this career. I've been a salesman since I was 14 years old. I get this career leasing like $1 million beach homes out on the beach in Port Aransas, Texas. It's a little island, North Padre Island, where they do spring break and all that stuff. So I start having like a successful business career, right? I'm doing millions of dollars in sales. I relapsed right out, like, I think it was like 2 days before the wedding. So I'm drinking full on again. No drugs, but I was drinking every single day. I ballooned up to like 382 pounds. I was completely out of control. Okay. And when you're making that much money for people, they tend not to bring up your bad behaviors. You know what I mean?
What about your wife? What was she saying about the whole situation?
Oh, she hated it, and she's a good woman, she's a good mom. She didn't drink like me. She didn't never do drugs, none of that stuff. So it was like me. They're living with a complete alcoholic, a madman at this point. But I go to work every day. I show up, I go to work, I make the money. She was a stay-at-home mom for a while. We ended up working together and everything. But then it all starts to come unraveled, right? Like after a decade of being in an alcoholic marriage, after all the trauma, after all the fighting, everything starts going really bad. I got beat in I jumped companies like 3 times. In the last one, I got beat in a bad business deal. It's a small town. I boxed myself in. So nobody's going to mess with me at this point. So in a matter of a couple weeks, I lose the career. I lose the wife and kids. They're gone. And I end up moving back with my dad back in the city of Corpus Christi, which was about 35 minutes away. Now, the sound of the absence of my children's feet on the floor and them opening the door for me when I walked through the door after work, it drove me insane, right? So I don't have God in my life. I lost my career, and I'm not a dad and a husband. I have no identity. So I get a job as a cab driver. Now, if you just rewind a little bit, right before I lost my career, I started dabbling in this guy I was working with. So I would stay up, and I'm now like a full-blown sex and pornography addict. I'm living with my dad. I get this job and I work like 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. and I'm driving a taxi. Now I've got this little chip of a problem, right? And everybody starts off snorting for the most part. Everybody snorts. It's fun. It's a very sexual drug. That's how the devil gets his hooks into you. And if was just losing your teeth and losing your kids right off the bat, nobody would do it. It's a seductive dance. It's definitely, they don't call it the devil's drug by mistake, Bill. I don't know if you've ever done it, but I'm sure some of your listeners can absolutely relate to what I'm talking about.
So I've done it like where you drink it in a bottle of water.
Yeah.
I did a couple lines here and there, but I never got like fully into it.
Well, very quickly it turns into this. That's the cover of the book right there. And, I'm driving the taxi and I got this drug problem. And very quickly I'm meeting this ragtag group of characters, pimps, prostitutes, drug dealers, check cashers, money counterfeiters. And I start to figure out really quickly that the cab was a perfect place to start to draw in a way to make the money to support my drug habit, if you know what I mean. Yeah. People will pay you in ice off the meter, you know what I mean? And all you got to do is make up the cash that you would owe half the cash for the cab company by the end of the night. It's a hustle, right? So quickly the cab becomes a rolling felony, right? And you're traveling around, you're ferrying the lost souls of the city around. Now in that city, the cab companies are very politically connected, okay? So like, there's like cops, first responders, and then cabbies for some reason, which is crazy to me, but that's just the way it is. If you have to get like a city cab driver's license, the whole 9 yards, right? You weren't allowed to go to certain houses. They're called places of ill repute, which I wanted to find out which ones those were right away, right? But they warned you. They're like, you can't go. There's a book in that city where you can't go to these certain addresses to pick people up or drop off because they're known for illegal activity, right? So I'm driving the taxi now. It's like a full-on life of crime. It's all night long, all day long, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The underbelly. We're rolling through the neon slime of the city. And it's like, it was safe passage. People going to re-up and get a big package, whatever it was, right? The cops aren't going to mess with you when you're in the taxi. So I started to like make a name for myself. Now, I'm going to say this. I know your audience, okay? I was never a gangster. I was never a tough guy. I was there on a buicide mission, so we don't get flagged, to unalive myself. It was a 2.5 year long mission to unalive myself, but nobody ever told me that meth doesn't really kill you. It just drives you insane, right? And it'll take every fiber of your being. And, it's like you got the trap house girlfriend moving in all of a sudden. Now you got 2 drug habits to support, right? And the stories are just wildly crazy. I mean, we all know what the life of crime entails, trap houses. We're cruising around to strip clubs, bar rooms. I was a strip club manager before this too, so I like kind of knew people in that world too. So it was like,
anyone ever try to rob you in the taxi?
I honestly did not. And you know what? Like, we never carried that much cash. I was always struggling for cash. I was getting paid in ice, for the most part, ice and credit cards and stuff. Like I didn't carry that much cash on me. And the cash that I did have, I'd immediately go score. I'm a stone to the bone junkie at this point. Okay. Yeah. I mean, people ask me if I was dealing drugs. I tried it one time. I think I did all the product in like 2.5 hours. I was the worst drug dealer.
All the money. Yeah.
Right. And, so I get, and this is in the book too. I end up linking up with this one lady. She was like one of the most feared female drug dealers in the city. And I ended up being, she told me I was going to be her exclusive driver. I had a brand new ride, this little geeky Mitsubishi Mirage, right? But it was brand new. It was so nerdy that the cops wouldn't even, they wouldn't mess with you, right? Plus, I'm a white guy, right? So that's very lucrative as far as like keeping your cover. Like, I mean, racism is alive and well in the United States, and cops tend not to give white people, as much of a hassle, right? So yeah. I was working with a lot of Mexican people at the time. So that I was charging more than anybody else, but I had a valid driver's license. I had a Corpus Christi cab driver's license, which if you showed both during a traffic stop, that's, goes a long way, and I was white. So I charged premium prices. They thought I was a diva, but I said, hey, I'm not a tweaker at a stolen car. I'm going to get you from point A to point B safely. Right. So, down the road to hell we go. And Bill, I'm telling you, the road is covered in ice. I mean, now I'm up crystal meth, which if anybody's ever done that before, it's like you're being cradled in the arms of Satan the first time you do it. The menthol explosion that barrels out of your throat. And it's like, it's just like this blanket of warmth that goes from your head all the way to your toes. You're just writhing in sexual energy and pleasure. It's just the most wild experience. Pure evil at its purest form.
Yeah, but so if you do too much, there's no way to control it either, right? Like, so once it's in you, there's no way to like calm that down, is there?
I mean, people mix substances to like come down from it, but I was always to the point. I was trying to unalive myself, and I'm a speed demon, man, when I get going. So, I mean, I'd be staying up 5, 7, 10 days on a stretch. Now I'm driving a city taxi like that. I'm jumping out of the taxi at the stand at 7 a.m. And I'm going to my house. I parked my car there. Now I'm jumping in the Mirage and I'm driving the dope dealers around the city during the day. I'm staying up 24/7. This endless chase, shooting up right there in the car. And it's like, this is a different beast. I've done every single drug and my platform, like 2%, right? Only 2% of people get and stay clean off the devil's drug. And there's a reason for that for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a low stat. There's a lot of us out here doing it, but it's a really supernatural drug. And when I wrote the Bible, the reason why it's being read in 10 countries, the reason why thousands of people have decided to purchase that book is because it's one of the only books on earth that talks about the supernatural side, the demonic side of the underworld, the drug itself, and the experiences people have on it. It's like you're dancing with something so close to Satan. Like literally, I mean, the history of is wild. I don't know if you know this, but it was invented by the Japanese and it was really put into high gear and refined by the Germans in the 30s and 40s, if you know who I'm talking about.
Wartime and all that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I mean, there was a drug called Pervitin. It's in this book right here. I actually got it right here. It's a book called Blitzed by Norman Ohler. Tells the whole story. All the troops were on it. Then they're giving it to like the doctor, the mother, the homemaker, the normal butcher down the street. The whole country is on. And then they all participate in the greatest atrocities that this planet has ever seen. Wherever the devil's drug and meth show up, the devil is right in the middle of it. If you look at history, it's all the way through. And now we're giving it to our kids in schools for ADHD. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
as the decline of Western civilization as we know it's happening. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's pharmaceutical grade given to, many children. And a study showed that 1 in 4 kids in the public school system today are abusing those type of drugs from other students. So chances are, mom and dad, look for the signs that your kid's getting, because it's happening.
Yeah, so they'll go to school, their friends will be on it legally, and they'll be like, hey, let me get one of those, right?
Right. And the kids who need them don't like to take them because it has the opposite effect and it makes them zombies. So they give them away, they sell them, whatever, right? So they're very accessible. I mean, that was my experience. Kids would hand me satchels full of 20 milligram Ritalins. You'd suck the time release coating off and crush them and snort them up your nose in the middle of art class. That was Reading Memorial High School anyway. And I wasn't the only one doing it. Like everything is getting really crazy. Okay. The crime is just crazy. I mean, dangerous situations. We know, guns to the face, wrong place at the wrong time.
And when you talk about something like that, can you walk me through a situation?
Well, all right. So I call this the Trinity of Death. But I mean, this is like real life tales, right? Like, so my girlfriend's at the house. I pick up a pregnant drug dealer, right? She's a female. She's pregnant. This is a different one. She's this white girl. She looked like a trailer park Barbie doll, but she was like 9 months pregnant. I pick her up, right? And she asked me, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, there's a part of Corpus Christi called North Beach, and this one guy ran the whole thing, and I would always text him. I'd be like, I'm in the taxi, I'm coming over, whatever. And I'd let him know I'm coming there. That night, I just didn't. For whatever reason, I was like, it's quick in and out. I'm dropping this chick at a hotel. I'm in my personal car. I'm going to go over there, and I'm just going to drop her off. So I see the dude's wife in the parking lot. And I'm going up the stairs. I'm carrying the luggage for the girl because she's like 9 months pregnant. I'm like, all right. She'll break me off something. I leave, right? Yeah. So I walk by this girl who's walking by. I'm like, hey, how's so-and-so? It's her husband, right? She just mumbles something. She walks by me. I'm like, oh, whatever. People act strange when they're on drugs. So we go up the stairs. It's one of those exterior staircases at like a Holiday Inn right on the beach, right? Like, so you go up and you go up the staircase or whatever, but it's all outside. So as I'm coming up I go up the stairs and I smoked with the girl, right? I smoked a bowl and I got my stuff and I was leaving. As I'm coming down the stairs, he's coming up, the drug dealer. Okay. This is, I believe it was October of 2017. So like the end of 2017, middle of the night, summer, fog all over the place. I'm coming down the stairs and I see him and he goes into his pocket, pulls out a loaded 357 Magnum and he cocked that thing and he put it right in my eyes. And now this dude, all these drug dealers, you know, if it was like the movies where they drive big fancy cars and stuff, I wouldn't have been able to support my drug habit. Everybody's broke. Everybody's just, you know, getting high and banging bag chasers. It's a wild, wild ride, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he walks up the stairs, right? And he puts the gun and he's so, because he's a drug addict too. He's quaking. And I thought he was going to shoot me by accident. Personally, I was just like frozen. I was like, I don't know what I did, man, but I didn't do it. And he's like, he said, Boston, are you my wife? And I was like, nah, man. I'm like, I'm up here with so-and-so. I'm like, I've been up here the whole time. I'm like, I see her in the parking lot. So she was at the hotel and she was with another dude. And he just by chance thought it could be me. And I didn't text him that night. So he's like, what are you doing here? You always let me know you're coming. Cause I'd always go score when I'm over there, you know?
So it looks bad. It looks
super bad. So it was like an angel. Like, this is why I always say, like, God's hand's been on my life the whole way through. So many miracles, right? A guy, so there's 3 floors. We're on the 2nd floor now. A guy opens the door. He heard the commotion and he's just like a worker in town doing construction or something, right? It's like 3:30 in the morning. He hears these maniacs outside and he's like, hey, what? He's like, what the fuck are y'all doing? And blah, blah, blah. The kid dropped the gun to his side and it was like I watched the spirit of murder drain out of his body, dude. And he looks at me and he's like, Boston, you ain't here seeing her? And I said, nah, man, I'm upstairs with her. I'm almost like my pants, Bill. I mean, come on, a loaded gun to the face. Yeah. And he puts the gun in my ribs and takes me up to the room. And we're knocking on the door. I'm like, hey, you got to come out here. I'm like, you got to tell this dude, you know. She didn't answer the door. She pulled the blinds on the window back, like the door's here. And she's like, yeah, he's with me. He's telling the truth. He's with me. And the guy ends up letting me go. Right. So that was one night. I think that was like a Saturday night. Right. So I go home the next day. You know, I think I went to sleep actually. Right. And I wake up and I had one of those big bongs that would sound like a helicopter when it's taken off. And it's like a big Gatorade bottle contraption, right?
Yeah.
And it's got a pipe on the end of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I get up and whatever, I do my thing. My live-in girlfriend at the time, she was supposed to clean the house that night, right? But whenever she smoked weed, she would get real lazy, right? So I saw a nickel bag on the countertop. Now it's about 6 o'clock at night or whatever. Sun's starting to go down. My shift's about to start. So I don't even smoke weed, right? I would never touch that garbage.
Yeah.
No way. So I grab it and I shove it in my sock and I head out to work. I'm like, hey, don't forget to clean the crib. All right. So I go, the town's dry. I've got like a little something just in case, you know, you can't figure something out because, you know, if I didn't have anything left, you know, the girl's going to leave. That's 100%. Right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to go into withdrawals either. Right. You start going crazy from withdrawals from meth. It's all mental. Right.
That's like you get spun, right? When you're coming down, you get spun out.
You just start feeling super mean and your forehead starts to feel like it's swelling out of your head. It's a wild feeling, agitated. It's like you're a demon. And so I'm driving around. The whole town's dry. And I'm like, I know 50 dealers. I'm like, what's going on, man? Nobody had anything, which tells me it all probably comes from one big source, really. That's what it looks like when the whole city's dry. You know, I'm driving around and I'm trying to score, right? You're on full audio visual, man. Okay. So you got to be very careful how you move. Okay. So I'm driving around. I'm talking to people in the taxi. Stupid. I'm getting desperate, right? I never did that. All the rules that I set for myself were out the window. Every time you got in my car, seatbelts on. It's the dumbest reason to get pulled over. If you know what I mean? So I'm like, no booze in the car, nobody smoking weed in the car, nothing stupid. I had all these rules, right? I checked my tail lights. I thought I was like a professional wheelman, right? Checking all the bulbs, everything. But I was like, I'm not getting pulled over for something stupid. Yeah. So that night I'm cruising around, nothing. But I finally meet these guys, right? Or this one guy, and he knows another guy. And he's like, listen, he called him. He's like, meet him at this gas station. This is a stranger, by the way. I've never dealt with these people. That's how desperate you get, right? Wow. So I dropped the guy off. He's like, meet him up. It was like 3 exits away. I was falling asleep frequently during that time. Like I'm doing a couple weeks before this, I'm doing like 80 miles an hour. And there's a turn that goes up like this and goes up a bridge. So there's a wall right in front of you. And I remember I felt like something slapped me in the back of the head, and I woke up and I was heading right for this wall, and I slammed on the brakes and I took the turn. I was driving those old cop cars, Crown Vic Police Interceptor models. They like turn. Yeah. And they turn on a dime. It's like the Blues Brothers, right?
Yeah.
So I hit the brakes and then I skidded. I hit the gas and go up, and it's like, I pulled over and I'm like, I'm shaking. But that happened a couple weeks before. I'm always falling asleep. I wake up with my foot on the brake pedal at a stoplight, and I'd come to, and cars would be whizzing by me. If I had slipped off the brake pedal, I would have been done. So like God's hand's been on my life the whole time, man, walking me through, right? I mean, I'm using off the floor. There's homeless people in my house. My trap house, it was my grandparents' house, became this demonic fun house, a carnival, just an underground railroad stop in the world of. I mean, the cast of characters, the evil spirits, all of
it. You're bringing strangers home. Yeah, come over. God. You can sleep on the floor, no problem.
Oh, right? We would have just full-on debaucherous parties and orgies and pornography. We'd have porn playing on the TV like it was elevator music. My dad's an accountant. And I'm living with him, the poor guy, right?
What was he thinking? Did he ever come to you and be like, what the hell is going on? Like, did he ever...
Well, yeah, and he was always trying to get me help or whatever, but my dad was an alcoholic too, and we were just slipping. He was a talented businessman and everything. He did not want to put me out. It was like the love of Christ. Like he didn't know he was hurting me. That's why addiction in families is so dangerous, because somebody enables you. Like I was using his house. He's paying all the bills. I have a $4,000 a month drug habit, and I can't pay the electric bill. So he's paying everything. He's feeding half of these idiots that come over when they're coming down, you know? And he was really a great guy. He was an awesome person. And like, I've had to do a lot of work about forgiving myself for what I put him through. He saw the most gnarly fights between me and these girls, like crazy. I mean, it's in the book, man. It's absolute pandemonium. Okay. So all of that's going on. I'm driving and I get like 2 exits away. Now, this is where you're going to want to show this picture, okay? The one of the accident scene. This is the beginning of a major spiritual awakening in a journey that blows the human mind. And God gave me all the receipts to back it up, which is the craziest part, okay? So I'm driving. I get like 2 exits away, and I hear honking horns. It's one of those balmy October nights. The fog is rolling in off the ocean. Palm trees are covered with fog. You can barely see. It's like a blanket covering the whole city, right? So I hear honking horns, and I wake up and I see lights. Happen like twice. I fall asleep the 3rd time. I'm 1 exit away. I woke up and I heard a loud crash. Boom. And I woke up and looked down at the speedometer. I was airborne doing like 70 miles an hour. I flew off the highway and went onto the feeder road and cut across. You know, in a movie when you see like slow motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you hear about that stuff, but when it really happens to you, it's the most freaky experience ever. I saw everything in like frames. So the first one, I'm skidding. All 4 tires are popped and I'm sliding, and there's rubber, smoke, everything. And I'm seeing all this in like slow-mo. I go towards it and I go, the first thought was, oh, shit, that's concrete. Like I knew what I was about to hit, right? It was this massive sign made of concrete, like a pole, and then a sign on top of it. It looked like the size of a redwood tree, Bill.
Yeah.
And I'm skidding towards it, and I'm like, oh no. Then I saw the face of my daughter. That's her when she was little. Like, that's why I put that there with that symbol. Because I saw her face, and this peace came over me. And like real quick, like I got right with God in an instant. And I accepted my death, and I knew I was going to die. And then the third thing I saw, it was like the nose of the taxi touched, and it was like a concussion, like a nuclear weapon had gone off inside the confines of that taxi. The front seat, the engine's in the front seat, right? I saw it like crushing tuna can in around me. Because I had those rules for myself, I had my seatbelt on. Okay? I had a superficial cut on this hand. It looked like somebody had cut my arm off with a chainsaw. There was blood everywhere, broken glass in my eyes. Blue oil smoke is billowing off the engine and up into my nose. I sawed all 5 ribs completely in half with the seatbelt. They weren't even touching. My left heel was crushed. Like in those old cop cars, there's only like that much space underneath the seat, the way it sits. And my heel was crushed. My sneaker was broken. So I'm sitting there. I'm covered in blood. I'm a mess, totally broken. I opened the door and I ripped my foot from underneath the seat. My foot's completely broken. I got out,
jammed under the seat.
Jammed under the seat, and I had to take my hands and rip it. And my ribs are broke too. I ripped my leg out, and I spilled out onto the concrete. It smelled like somebody was barbecuing filet mignon at some evil barbecue somewhere. Like liver and onions. It was disgusting. My blood spurting on the engine. You could smell like all of this stuff I can smell it now thinking about it, reliving the experience. I puked all over the sidewalk. So, Bill, this is across from the news station. They could have filmed this from the roof. Okay? I'm in a city taxi. Signs demolished. I'm hobbling around on one foot, like with my tippy toes on the broken foot. And I just remember like talking out loud. I'm going, oh my God. Oh my God. I look and I'm like, I remember what's in the bank bag. And I'm like, holy shit, I got to get back in there. So I start hobbling back to the car. Good Samaritans tackle me because the car's on fire, man. And I try to go in and get it so I don't end up going to prison, right? I couldn't see it. The smoke, the fire, everything. I got back up and I started hobbling again. And then when I saw the bubble gums lighting up and coming onto the scene, the fire trucks and all this, the cops, everything. As soon as I saw that, things started getting real and I passed out like in a movie, right? So they're all being nice to me. They're like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? And they start patting me down. Remember what happened? Remember my girlfriend when she would get lazy? Remember when I forgot all about it in my search for my quest for the ice, right? Yeah. So they're patting me down. And the guy goes, this piece of shit. The whole tone changed. And I'm like, I'm in big trouble, man. The cop looked at me. Now, this is because of the political connections. There's no other reason. It's not because they liked me. Okay. They didn't want a junkie cab driver on the front page of the news. And the cop, he looked at me and he's like, this yours? And I was like, look, man, I go, you can draw my blood when we get to the hospital. You're not going to find no weed in my blood. Now, I didn't tell him there's about a gallon of, but you know, I was just like being honest with the guy, and he must have read something in my face. He ripped out the bag and they threw it in the bushes. It's a true story.
Wow.
Okay. I'm in the back of the ambulance now and I'm going to the hospital. I'm in there. They've immediately put me on like morphine or whatever, some extremely strong painkiller. I'm out of my mind. Family showing up and everything like that. Everyone leaves. My dad's there, the girlfriend, the ex-wife, everyone's there and they all leave. And in this moment, this EMT comes in. I used to carry my money and everything in one of those bank bags, the leather bank bags, the ones with the zipper, typical tweaker, right? So this EMT comes in and he goes, my real name's Patrick, right? He goes, hey, Patrick. He goes, we found your wallet and your money and everything. He goes, here you go. And he threw that thing at me, Bill. It hit me in the chest and it slid down and I didn't even look at it. And I watched him walk out. And I opened that bank bag and I had it in a Marlboro pack. Remember in Pulp Fiction when they opened the briefcase and that golden light hits them?
Yeah.
It was just like that. And I saw it. I pulled the IVs out of my arm and I hopped out the side door. My girl scooped me up and I went home to get my next one.
Wow.
And so then the next night, the Trinity of Death. This is like in 3-day period. So now I didn't get the results for the X-rays back. So now I'm drinking rum to kill the pain. I'm a complete mess. I drove to do a job on the other side of the bridge, and on the way back, I fell asleep again, and I hit the side rail doing 80 miles an hour in my personal car.
So that's like the next day?
Yes. There was no bottom for me. There was nothing scary enough. There was nothing that was going to stop me. I was on a mission. And it was just because I was so deeply addicted and sick. I couldn't pull myself away. I mean, if that doesn't wake you up, I don't know what will. But when you show this picture, 1 week later exactly, right? It was the following Monday. It was like a week and a day or something. I was driving this girl to get a drug test in the same shopping mall. And I pull up, and it's the same place. Nothing was touched. The only thing that was gone was the car. Now, picture it didn't happen, okay? So I snap a photo of the accident scene. You can see my headlight, the police tape. If you zoom in, I was sitting there tweaking, zooming in on this picture. And I looked up into the top right of the picture. And I had fallen asleep, and I had hit the sign at the Christian Sleep Study Center. It was like God dropped a sign. The sign fell on top of the taxi. God literally dropped a sign onto my head. And you know, trying to tell me to take my foot off the gas and the lifestyle I was living. It was a complete doorway out. Okay. And I didn't listen. I actually went harder. The girlfriend leaves because now I don't work for the cab company anymore. So now,
after that accident, the second one, what happens? The police come?
The second one, I just drove home. The tire on the car, when I drove 12 and a half miles from the Harbor Bridge to the south side of Corpus. And when I got home, the tire flattened in the driveway.
It's like,
it was the radials were showing, and then it like slowly the air just like leaked out of the tire, man. It was wild. The cops never even heard about the second one. I just scraped the guardrail with the tire and everything, and I woke up. That one wasn't like a crazy big accident, but almost fatality accident. Okay.
So were there any repercussions for the first accident? You didn't get arrested, nothing.
Nah, brother.
Wow.
No. Listen to this. 6 months later, I'm tweaking and I order a taxi, and this guy comes up to me and he's a cab. He's like, "You're the guy who hit the sign in the Crown Vic, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You ever heard about the tapes from that night?" And I said, "What?" And he goes, "They were Snow White. Static." I mean,
what do you mean?
Like the tapes that they pulled were completely static. They were like,
oh, so they were looking for the videos.
Yes. And I wondered why. I always wondered why. Now, that's the story the guy told me. And I'm like, was that God maybe not ready for the journey to end? Because after that, I really started having these spiritual experiences. So for about 5 days after this accident, Bill, I was seeing these like bulbs on a stage that spelt out words. I thought I was losing my mind. Now I'm not crazy at this point. I'm still hustling. I'm still like running around the city. I got my wits about me. Now I'm a crazy drug addict as far as like the way I'm living, staying up for a long time. But I thought I had like a head injury. So I was seeing these messages, and I wasn't even telling anybody about it because I'm like, they're going to throw me in a loony bin. One of the signs would say, "Find the others." And the next one would say the big event. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then over the next few months, I started to have like these major experiences with like God and the devil, like supernatural stuff. I put that all in the book. But it was like I was at this crossroads where I was walking hand in hand with the serpent. I mean, living the most debaucherous lifestyle possible. Sex with as many partners as you could get. Like I said, needles off the floor. The people I was around, I mean, you're hanging around like card readers, Satanists, the most wild stuff. I mean, there's parts in the book where I met these people, and I was going to this house party, and it's from this website or whatever. And you go to this one thing, you meet these people, and you get an email. I was driving to this function at a house, and I remember thinking, I'm like, damn, these people are they're clicking up the sidewalks in like black patent leather boots and capes. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's not Halloween. It was like July or something. But you know, it's like and it was like a BDSM party. It was like a Judas cross in the backyard, somebody getting flogged. Like, this is the stuff that's out there. If John and Jane on Main Street knew what sat just in the shadows of their lily white community, Bill, they would never leave the house. There is a life of crime and a life of devil worship and demons and everything that sits with real people doing real rituals, the whole 9 yards. It's all in there. Like this, they bless it before it goes out onto the traps all over the city. Like first,
that's in almost every state too. This type of stuff happens.
The devil sets his carnival up. I call it the Devil's Carnival. He sets it up in every major city and every little town and every trailer park in between, and it's everywhere. And I mean, I can go around at 2, 3 in the morning, drive into a gas station, and I can look around and I can point you out the people who are on, like the glow of the phone hitting their eyes, you know, the diamond eyes of the devil just glistening in the moonlight. I mean, it's all over. And I mean, these people are walking around amongst us, right? So that's the lifestyle. It's way deeper than just being a drug addict. I mean, you're around some bizarre stuff. I was experiencing supernatural things, sparks shooting out the stove, the whole 9 yards. Like my dad had to pay $180 to get it rewired. That story's in the book. Like, I mean, it was just beyond. So it's like good and evil. It's like the miracles, like God's walking me through, like I'm living through all this stuff. Nothing. I mean, I'm getting hurt, but nothing's killing me. But then all of a sudden, like, you know, you're experiencing things that are so far left with the devil that it takes your breath away at the same time. And my platform, it was like one of the first Burks to ever talk about this stuff. I can't tell you how many hundreds of thousands of people that have commented and said that they experienced the same exact things. And everybody's like, I was too scared to talk about it because I didn't want to sound crazy.
Have you ever felt like scared for the situations that you've been in, or scared for what you were going through?
At the time, when you're under the spell of the man, you feel like you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Plus, you feel so terrible. The mission is to die anyway. So, I mean, it's like your inhibitions are completely gone. I mean, imagine using off the floor and sleeping with strangers all day. I mean, really, what kind of headspace would a human being have to be in? Now, these are people that you know from the game and stuff. All these women, like my trap house, girls would just knock on the door and say, hey, I'm here to party. And it's like, I've never met them before. Come on in. That's the lifestyle. And this book tells, it's really a portrait, an accurate portrayal of hell. And most Christian people lie about their testimony. They cover up the ugly parts. And when I was writing it, God told me, you know, he spoke internally to me. I want you to write it exactly the way it looks. The 50 cents on the dollar food stamps, the orgies in the bedrooms, everything, all how it works, everything. I want you to give an accurate portrayal of hell, because how are people ever going to know the true miracles of God if they never see the darkness from which he really saved us from? So it's very graphic. It's a book about and the devil. It's a book about sex addiction, pornography addiction, about using. It's very descriptive. You can smell the smells of the trap houses. You can feel the going into your arm. You can feel the menthol bursting out of your mouth. I mean, you can experience what it's like to be a meth addict in that book without ever touching the drug. And a lot of people who've been out of addiction, they have to take breaks because it gets too intense, you know? So I wrote it in that manner because that's the stuff God really delivers us from, okay? Those are the real miracles of God once you come out the other side. So I just continue down the spiral. Now I'm basically starting to go insane. Do you know what deep psychosis is? Have you ever heard that term?
No.
It's a medical term. You start getting spun out from the excessive. I took it to a level that no human being should. At one time, for a long time, I was an 8-ball a day user, 3.5 grams a day. That would keep a normal person up for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Okay. And I was doing that every day. Now I'd spread it around a little bit, girls, stuff like that. But I mean, I was keeping the lion's share for me, right? You're not sleeping for 5 days on average at a time. You're not drinking water. You're not eating. You're fasting for the devil like Christians fast for the Lord. but it's in reverse, you see.
Are you losing weight at this time?
I'm drinking so much Pepsi, I was probably the fattest addict you've ever seen. But I was still like, I wasn't in bad shape, but I mean, I should have been rail thin. I mean, I wouldn't eat for 5 days, a lot, like frequently, but I'm drinking the Pepsi, you know, I'm smoking a pack and a half of cigarettes a day, stuff like that, right? So I'm living an unhealthy life. But I mean, I'd be driving the taxi sometimes and my back would feel like somebody hit me with an aluminum baseball bat. And in Texas, they got 64-ounce drinks. I don't recommend those to anybody. Like go in and get you a 64-ounce Coke. But I put Gatorade in it and I drank it. And then I realized, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm so dehydrated that my back hurts. That's my kidneys that's hurting because it has no fluid. As soon as I drank it, about 15 minutes later, I felt great. But it's like you're so lost in the addiction, in this being spun out so far into the atmosphere, you don't realize these things. You are dying from the lifestyle, right? Yeah. So deep methamphetamine psychosis is when you go into a complete alternate universe. So I got it in my head, like all these girls were showing up to the house, like a lot more than normal. They were better looking than normal. When I was running out of dope, they would show up and have dope. Now I got a free place to stay in a car. Like I'm not putting that together. So I get this delusion in my mind from the psychosis that these women are being sent. Like, I'm good looking, Bill, but I'm not that good looking. Somebody's sending these girls to my house, right? Because if you make enemies in the meth game, people play mind games on you. Like, it's super twisted. It's a thing called gang stalking. It's in the book too.
Oh yeah,
like,
I heard of that.
You heard of gang stalking? So gang stalking was a thing. I wrote this in 2020 and I put it in there because I've seen it with my own eyes. You cross the wrong person, they'll torture you to try to get you to unalive yourself. It's wild. They'll just pay somebody to go to your house and find out all this stuff. It's wild. So I thought that's what was happening to me, right? Then I start thinking that there's hidden cameras everywhere. Now today, those little cameras you could buy for $20. This was a different world then, right?
Yeah.
But I thought that people knew things about me that they shouldn't. I started getting super paranoid. But then I start to believe. This is where the delusion gets so insane. It's in a chapter in the book called Movie Magic, okay? I started to believe that I was handpicked and selected out of the ice game to be part of this hidden camera movie, like a reality reboot of the movie The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, right? I started thinking Jim Carrey's an executive producer on this flick. And I think I'm going to be the richest stand-up comic in the United States, the biggest film star when this movie wraps, right? This is hard to even explain, but it's like I started doing stand-up comedy in the middle of Walmart on the counter. I was getting thrown out of every fast food joint in Southside Corpus Christi. Like I'd be like causing scenes because I think I'm acting out these scenes. I'm being a real dick to everybody. You know, but I'm like, hey, if we're gonna shoot a movie, let's shoot a movie.
But right? You really believe this in your mind, like you think this is real.
You couldn't tell me. And my dad was still alive at the time. He was stricken with spinal cancer, stage 4 spinal cancer during this time. I was in my bedroom. I'd stayed up all night. He walks by me after he comes home from his job as an accountant, and he walks by me and he's like, he goes, Patrick, I don't feel so good. Now, for about 2 weeks, I was rubbing icy hot on his back because he thought he pulled a muscle. And he walks by me, and I'm like, all right, Dad. And I stayed up all night, and I heard him scream, and I ran into the room. He's like, I can't feel my legs. Overnight, the spinal tumor metastasized and touched his spinal cord, and he couldn't feel his legs. He was paralyzed overnight. I'm a full-blown junkie. This guy's my best friend. He's my dad. We've been playing golf together since I was 12 years old. All of a sudden, like, we're in this dilapidated trap house with these 2 dying dogs. All the carpeting's ripped out from all the domestic disputes. There's holes punched in the wall. I mean, it's just a scene out of a horror movie. Piss all over the floor.
There's no food, right?
He's got food in the fridge. But, you know, it was like all the people would eat most of his stuff. So it was like, yeah, it was just a really bad time, man. And I became a caretaker for a dying man. While I was a dying man, I remember looking at my dad one day and I was like, Dad, you know, we're both dying. after the diagnosis and everything. He's like, you know what, Patrick? He's like, but you have a choice.
Is he in a wheelchair? Do they put him in a wheelchair?
We didn't even have a wheelchair or nothing at the time. So I'm hoisting this 200-pound man into the shower with my swim trunks on, and I'm bathing him. I'm shaving him. I'm doing all like his face, and I'm like wiping his butt. Then I'm changing his diapers. I'm choking back tears. And I'm like, it's going to be all right, Dad. We're going to fight through this. We're going to fight through this. And then I would run into the bedroom and I would just let it all out. And then I would have to get, now I'm staying up 24/7. I'm in psychosis, but he would try to talk me out of this delusion. But you could not tell me that this movie, this evil Hollywood machine that's torturing me, that was waging war on me, wasn't real. So, I mean, all of a sudden, like my dad disappears during all this. Okay. He's just gone one day. I went out somewhere and came home the next day and he's gone. Now, I'm so far in, I decide that he's now faking cancer. This is all part of the movie script. He's really playing golf in Hawaii. Like they had him on some diet where he lost weight rapidly to get him to 140 pounds. You know, so like Christian Bale in the movie The Machinist, dropping weight for the role. I thought all this, and I was convinced. The house is a house of horrors. I'm smashing TVs through closed windows, punching more holes in the wall. I'm in this like rage. My poor neighbors, man. I mean, they literally lived next to an encampment in hell at the time. There's like a dumpster outside. We were doing a project. It was there for like a year. Trash blowing around. These are people that knew my grandma in real life, by the way. Like nice people. This isn't the country club estates, Bill. And this is all unfolding, right? I had a nighttime estate sale. I hung up like Halloween lights and like Christmas lights. And I was selling off like my grandpa's piano and, the Queen Anne chairs. And I'm like, relax. This is for the movie. And they're just putting it in a storage unit and we'll get it back at the end of the shoot. I believe this stuff. I had a lemonade stand at 35 years old, rivaling the Fitzpatrick twins down the street. Wow. I'm like screaming at him. I'm like, you little bitch, you had to open today to compete with me? Outside, not thinking the police could ever show up because it's all part of the movie. I'd be on the front porch with a blowtorch and a hear ye. The court of the king is now in session. I'd be screaming this at 4:00 in the morning. I'm like, relax, everybody. I'm like, it's all part of the script.
Did the police ever come?
No. And it was like, and it was like one time I got out of jail. My dad's in the wheelchair now. He's still working because I'm a total piece of crap, right? And I can't do anything to get clean and get a job or anything. I got out of jail for like a public intox and I came home. He was sitting at his desk in the wheelchair. I went and grabbed a fillet knife and I sat down next to him and I said, I put it to this big vein on my arm. And I said, you're going to tell me about this movie right now, Dad. And you're going to tell me about the whole plot and everything, who's putting you up to this, or I'm going to split this wide open and they won't even be able to get here by the time I'm done. And he just looked at me. It was one of the only times I ever seen my dad cry. And he looked at me and he said, Patrick, there's no movie. It's like, you're really sick. The SWAT team surrounded the house. Like I took his phone and moved it. So it was out of his reach. I was out of my mind. This is all stuff I had to do work on and live with. I mean, this is crazy. I didn't hurt him. The cops came. He was terrified. And he's like, don't hurt him. He's not hurting me. And they surrounded the place. But I get outside. I finally
cops? Who called
my family members. They figured it out. Right. So yeah. When the cops come, this is the stuff that would happen. This is legit. I put a story like this in the book too. I go out to the car. They got me handcuffed. Now this is like a hostage situation. Seriously. Yeah. Full psychosis. I get in the back of the cop car. One of the cops goes into the house. He gets me a Pepsi, right? Which I thought was a sponsor in the movie. It's wild. And he gets a bag of gummy bears off the counter and he's feeding me gummy bears and Pepsi in the back of the car. And I'm like, this has to be a movie. I'm like, what cops do this? I'm like, this is great. I can do anything. Stupid stuff. Then they dropped me at the hospital. I was out in 3 days with no charges.
Wow.
Facts.
So what happened? Did you go right back home?
I went right back home. Every 3 days now, my dad's missing and stuff. Every 3 days, they're put me in the hospital. I would be doing some big scene somewhere. They would arrest me. Every 3 days, they put me in the local mental hospital at the hospital, and then they would just kick me out. Now, I didn't know this at the time. Every time that you go in there, I heard they get like 10 grand for a 72-hour psych hold. So it's just this constant. The mental health system in the United States of America is absolutely broken. The drug and alcohol treatment center industry in the United States is absolutely broken. I should have gotten help way before the big event happened, right? So now this is late May, early June. I'm at the house. A group of people, my ex-girlfriend, everybody descends on the house. They're playing along with this delusion because now they've got control of the trap house, right? All they'd have to do is listen to me for 5 minutes, and they would be able to have enough information, right, to keep it going. But it was deepening my mental illness. I was mentally challenged from. I wasn't mentally ill. I was mentally challenged. I was living in a total alternate universe. I thought I was going to buy one of the white Ferrari from the Wolf of Wall Street when the movie ended. I had all these grandiose plans, and I'm like, I'm really just a dying drug addict that everyone's taking advantage of at this point, right? There's no tax anymore. The car's repossessed. I'm basically a homeless person living in this shell of a house. I'm in the house one day when this is going on, and the city came and boarded up all the windows while I was inside. The cops came with the city workers with the trailer that has they put like a lawnmower on the back. It had boards, and I could hear the screw guns. Zzz, zzz, zzz. The light starts disappearing. I was in this tiny bathroom in the house with a in my arm. And then it all came to an end, right? And I was not the story, but the addiction part, right? So it was 110 degrees. There was like human feces because the water's turned off. The toilet's full. There's trash up to the fiberboard. There's holes everywhere. There's as far as the eye can see. And I was out, and some kid put a Rambo knife to my throat or something. I ended up in a store, and I was just at the end of my rope. And I remember I had like 3 or 4 Locos that I shoplifted. And I brought them home and I chugged them. I was so thirsty. I chugged them and I just wanted to pass out and get some sleep. I had nobody. I couldn't support my habit. Nobody even wanted to be around me. I was so crazy. So I pass out on the bed. I'm in swim trunks, covered in self-inflicted knife wounds. I was like the man from Gadarenes in the Bible, like from the tombs, like totally possessed. You can see it in my mugshot, right? And I wake up and I look over, and there's this ratty old nightstand or whatever somebody had brought in. And there was a big butcher knife. It looked like something you'd see in Aladdin, but it was all covered in rust and everything. I remember getting up, and I remember grabbing the blade in my hand, and I said out loud, I said, "This ends now." And I stormed out the house, and I took a TV that was on the front lawn that I'd thrown through the window. It's been there for like months at this point. I took it and I threw it over my neighbor's fence because I thought they were in on it too. And I was just pissed at everybody in on this movie delusion, right? So it hits the house, and I storm around the block. Now I'm stoking down the street looking like an absolute maniac. And I walk across Weber Road in Corpus, and I went into this fast food restaurant.
Customers inside of a local McDonald's. Police were called to a McDonald's on Saratoga near Weber just last night to the report of a shirtless man inside holding a knife and yelling at customers. And he also took food without paying. The man was arrested after officers were able to convince him to lay down his knife, and after the incident, luckily, no one was hurt. But that man has now been identified as 36-year-old Patrick Christopher Durkin. He's charged with robbery and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Police say that he tried to force his way into a nearby home earlier in the evening, and then he'd actually broken into another home where he stole a flat-screen television.
And I opened the door, and I didn't even really step in. I put one foot in, and I said, "This is not a robbery. Everybody get the fuck up out of here." And there was like some people and 4 employees. They ran out the back door, and I threw the knife on the ground, and I walked around the counter, and I got me a burger, and I poured me a Coke, and I sat down and waited for the police. See, this was a self-inflicted arrest. This was a cry for help after being failed. Like the months leading up to this, I tried to get into treatment twice. There was only one state-funded treatment center in that area. I ended up working there later on after this all unfolded. but I couldn't get a bed. And I was so mentally ill, they wouldn't have been able to help me anyway, right? I tried to get help, and I was arrested so many times for public intox, so many trips to the hospital. I mean, that's all in my medical records, right? So the system failed me. I was at the end of my rope. It was a cry for help. So this cop comes up the drive. You know those big windows in the McDonald's?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there at the table. I take one bite and I see this dude with a 12 gauge, and he pumped that thing and he's walking up. I had that gun put in my face, Bill, and I'm telling you, it was nothing compared to this. Like, I looked through the glass as he was coming up, and I could feel this man wanting to kill me. I was like, I'm gonna be unalived right here. I jumped on the floor, and as he opens the door, I just screamed, "I'm not armed. I'm not armed." Later on, he's putting me in the cop car, and he told me, he's like, someone called in an active shooter. That's why the news report says I was breaking into houses. I threw my TV and hit my neighbor's house. I never tried to break into their house.
Police say that he tried to force his way into a nearby home earlier in the evening.
Yeah.
And later, I was never charged with that. That was just misinformation by the police. I got charged with aggravated armed robbery in the state of Texas. 5 to 99 on that charge, Bill. 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. 4 charges total. Those are 2 to 20 each in the state of Texas. 156 years stacked, and they wanted to give me 15. It was my first felony arrest ever. And they never came with a deal, nothing. I was crazy in jail for 8.5 months. I know I'm cruising through this story, but I got to get through all these parts, okay? So I'm in jail. I got no now. I'm in jail, right? And I'm so crazy. I think that I'm performing now for the cameras that are in the jail. I think all the other inmates are actors. I mean, I'm acting a fool, man. Like, they kind of
your mind state isn't getting better at all. Like, it's not like slowly coming back to you. Nothing.
I got worse. I started to believe that I had cameras hidden behind my eyes that could see what I could see. This is months in. Okay. That's where I started reading the Holy Bible. I was having jaw-dropping moments with Christ and the devil when I was out on the street, all the way back, like jaw-dropping moments. I was in this spiritual battle for my soul, man. I fully believe that. I remember standing in the trap house kitchen one night, and I remember being at this crossroads moment where I could choose God above or the devil beneath, but whatever one I chose, I was going to go all the way with. And I started walking towards God. That's why I thought the movie Delusion was like God themed. And I became like this good guy character that was waging war against this evil Hollywood machine. It's in the book in detail, so it would all come full circle. I described it pretty well in the book. But that's what addicts go through, that type of insanity, right? So I start reading the Bible in jail, and I read the whole New Testament 3 times while I was there. I read the book of Job and some others and everything, and that's where Christ really started to weave into my heart. And I was crazy. Like, he will meet you right where you're at in the depths of hell. Like, I was that lost sheep that was way out in the field. And I wrote it because so vile to show people that if you're going through drug, sex, and pornography addiction, prostitution, whatever you're going through in that life, you're not too dirty for Jesus Christ, right?
He wants everybody. It doesn't matter.
He wants everybody, and he's fully able and willing to meet you right where you're at. You don't have to be cleaned up. Like, God met me on the bar stool. He met me in the burning confines of a taxi cab. He met me in the trap, and he kicks down trap house doors and chased me down. And it was an experience, right? And that's what I pray for all addicts, is an experience with God. Because when you're so far gone, I failed in the programs for 15 years, and I needed a tap from God. It was the story of Nebuchadnezzar in the Bible, in the book of Daniel. It blew my mind when I got out way later on, and I'm reading through it, and there was a prideful king. He goes crazy, and he's healed, and whatever he experienced in between that they don't talk about, it made him a believer in the one true living God, and that's my story, right? So I'm in jail. Now, I'm still thinking everyone's an actor, Bill, right? So I get this attorney. I'm facing real serious charges. I'm still crazy. I'm wearing like a mohawk to court. The judge is laughing at me. So I get this guy. He sits down in the booth, and we're through the glass. This dude looked like Martin Scorsese, Bill. And I'm thinking he's one of the actors from the movie. I'm like, who's this quack they sent me, right? I'm like, I was about to fire the guy. I was like, I'm going to defend myself in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I go back to the pod. These guys go, who's your attorney? And I told them this dude's name, and I might as well have said Johnny Cochran. They were like, you're kidding me. Unbeknownst to me, God had given me a pathetic, homeless drug addict who's completely out of his mind, the number 2 pay attorney in the entire city of Corpus Christi, as my public defender that I won in a lottery.
Like pro bono, right?
Pro bono, baby.
Yeah.
And my case would have been about 50,000. He told me. He stayed with me 18 months. So they reject my first insanity defense because an NGRI is a not guilty by reason of insanity verdict. 1% of felons get it in front of a judge. 24% of the 1% actually get off on an insanity plea, and drugs disqualify you. So they'll comb your Facebook for 6 months. They look for any reason to throw that out because it'll cost them $1 million to house you.
So drugs, you being involved with drugs will disqualify you.
100%. It's like drunk driving. Like, you drank the booze, so you killed that person. That's on you. So if you're a drug addict out there and you end up going over the threshold and you're out of your mind, you could be the craziest person on earth. You are disqualified from an NGRI finding. So they reject that, and I'm sitting there. And then 8.5 months into trial, 8.5 months into trial, I'm sitting there, and I went to bed. I'm talking to the weatherman, Bill. This is a true story, man. And I'm watching the TV, and we're having a conversation. I'm thinking the weatherman's talking back to me. This is 8.5 months in. Statistically, after 90 days with no drugs, if you don't come out, you're probably never coming out. Team of doctors told me that. I went to bed and I woke up and I was staring in the sink above the toilet. And I remember looking in the mirror and I was completely healed like I am right now. And I remember being scared. I'm like, oh my God, my dad's really dead. Nobody's in my life. I'm facing like 15 years in prison. All this stuff is real. It's not part of a movie. I destroyed my grandparents' house. He got foreclosed. I have nothing. And then I start thinking like all the needles I used off the floor, all the sex I had that wasn't part of a movie. And then like that all hits you in one fell swoop, man. And it's like, I mean, I can't believe I didn't unalive myself in the jail cell at that point.
Is that when your father just disappears, that's when he passed away? You just didn't know? Or
I was so crazy that nobody told me. I found out 4 hours before the crime. When I was walking with those 4 locos, I made a phone call and I asked a family member, I'm like, where's my dad? And they go, your dad's been dead for 3 weeks. And I think that's part of why I surrendered at the McDonald's that day. I just kind of knew reality in my subconscious, and I gave up and I couldn't go on any further. I was a shell of a human being. I was a broken person, spiritually, mentally, sexually, emotionally, in every way you could be broken. I was just a sack of meat with a heartbeat at that point, possessed by the devil. You can see it in my mugshot. One of my eyes almost got poked out by another trap house girlfriend a couple weeks before. That's why my eye is like, I can't believe I didn't lose one of these baby blues, Bill. It would have been devastating.
Wow.
But I mean, so I'm now I'm like healed and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a lot of trouble. So 8.5 months in, I end up going to trial. I remember I was walking through the tunnel, right? The night before, I call Martin Scorsese. I call him. Jail phone. I'm like, we're going to court tomorrow. It's like 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, we're going to court tomorrow. It's at like 8:00 in the morning. I got the early show, right? So we're like, I'm getting ready for court. I'm like, what are we looking at, man? Probation? I'm like, it's my first felony arrest ever. And he goes, I'm sorry, Mr. Durkin. He's like, they're asking 15 years TDC. And I'm like, ah!
Now, does your lawyer, when you finally talk to him and you're healed,
yeah,
is he like, holy?
Yeah, like he knows now. He knows that I'm healed, but we're about to go to trial. Like we met a couple times in between the healing, and it was super scary. Bill, no deal. First felony, nobody got hurt. I didn't even look at the cash register. They never came and approached me to like, we'll give you 5. Nothing. There was no offer ever on the table. Wow. I was in shock. I'm like, oh, so I went back to my cell and I screamed into that little white towel they give you to shower with. And I remember I was like, I'm not going to see my kids. Texas, 12.5 years with a weapon on a 15 because you got to do 85%, right? So 12.5 years, no good time, nothing until tonight. Yeah. just for the knife in an aggravated armed robbery case, right? And I did. They had me dead bang on camera. I took real property, even though it was a $3 burger or whatever, and a Coke. And I sat down and I took it with a weapon and I scared people. The case was open and closed. I was done. Maybe that's why they didn't come with a deal. I was on like 4 cameras, right? Now, it was a news covered story. Everybody in jail called me the Hamburglar, Bill. It was the dumbest crime ever. That burger didn't even have cheese on it, bro. I was pissed. It wasn't worth no 15 years in prison. So I'm there. I call him. He tells me. And I remember sitting in the cell and I remember I said, okay, Lord, if you got me going to prison, now I'm a believer. I'm healed. I know God's real in my heart. And I was like, if you got me going to prison, I was like, I'll go up there with the intention of being a man of honor, integrity, and respect. And whenever this whole thing's over with, I promise I'll serve you to the best of my ability and I'll try to make the world a better place. And I went to bed and I was walking through the tunnel. There was 11 other guys and me shackled. That was very symbolic. There's 12 apostles, right? And we're walking. There's this leaky tunnel between Nueces County Court and the jail. So I'm walking from the jail. They were nice enough to give me brand new oranges. They only let you, shower and get a new one once a week over there, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm walking through and we're shackled. In the middle of the tunnel, in the middle of nowhere, it's this long tunnel. I see something up in the distance. We're on the right wall. We're all walking. Guards in front and back. I remember seeing something. I look over and I walk by this thing. It is the same exact wheelchair my dad had when he had spinal cancer. It's in the middle of this tunnel down there. It's like this cheap black. It said drive across the back of it. It gives me chills when I see him to this day. And I just had this feeling come over me, an overwhelming feeling that everything was going to be okay. And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to prison. I'll probably, I'll be okay. I'll be safe during my stay there, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not a gangster, man. I'm not a tough guy or none of that. I was scared going to Huntsville in Texas.
Yeah, I've heard about that place.
God knew I probably wouldn't have done too good. So he makes a way, right? So I'm traveling up there and I get up in the courtroom and there's Martin Scorsese. He's in his little gray tweed suit. And he's like, Mr. Durkin, he's like, get in this side room right here. And I'm like, all right. He's like, don't say anything. And we go in there. He goes, we beat the case. We beat the case.
What?
I remember saying this verbatim. I go, what do you mean we beat the case? I was like, I called you at 4:00 in the afternoon yesterday and you told me 15 years. He goes, I was at the DA's office after hours. He had his briefcase with my files in it because I was the early show at 8 a.m. and he was getting ready for court. He was on unrelated business at the DA's office. This is the night before trial, Bill.
And they dropped it all.
No, it's way better. We're far from over. So he's got the briefcase. The DA caseload switched by chance. So they rejected my insanity defense because of the drugs, and I got a new DA the night before trial. After the office is closed, he's there doing unrelated business. Lawyers work late and all that shit.
Yeah.
So he goes, I got this crazy guy in the morning. He's like, kid just went into McDonald's or whatever. He explained it, and the guy's like, yeah, we'll push it through. This new DA pushes through the insanity defense. Jeffrey Dahmer was too sane to get an NGRI, and drugs disqualify you. The odds are astronomical. And he goes, we're going to go up before the judge. It was Judge Sandra Watts. And he was like, we're going to go up before this judge. He goes, you don't say a word, but yes, ma'am, or no, your honor, whatever, right? And I went up. And she took the DA recommendation. She banged the gavel and it was signed into law. And I beat that armed robbery case, the 3 aggravated assaults with a deadly weapon. I came out with absolutely no criminal record of any kind.
Yeah, but here's when you get a insanity defense, do you have to be hospitalized or anything like that? Like, do you have to? Well,
buckle up, passengers, because we're about to go on a ride, and it's a wild one. We are jumping back in the Crown Vic, or actually it's a transport van this time. And we're headed to Vernon Supermax, mental institution for the criminally insane. See, Martin Scorsese was a top pay attorney. And this outcome is so rare, Bill, that not even Marty knew what was to come next. He goes, you're healed. He goes, you're not even crazy. He's like, you're going to go up to this hospital. He goes, you're going to be there for 30 days for evaluations and you're going to come right home. I'm like, I can do this. I just did 10 months in county jail, like a very crappy county jail. Like they turned our hot water off and stuff in February. It was terrible. People dying in there left and right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'll just eat a couple Jello pudding pops. We'll take this show on the road, right? Whatever. You don't know what a state mental institution looks like till you get there, right? So
I've been there.
You've been to the state hospital?
I've been there. Yes, I have.
All right. So let me paint a picture for you in this place, because a lot of people never have this bird's eye view, because most people are so insane. Even when they get out, they're so crazy. They can't tell the tale, right? So it looks like we get up there. It's a 10-hour drive. I called it Mars. It's out in the middle of nowhere near Wichita Falls. It's in a town called Vernon, Texas. Gun turrets, razor wire, looks like a prison from the outside, right? So we get inside. The first thing they do is a blood draw. I'm like terrified. I'm like, I'm positive I have HIV. No pun intended. I'm positive I have hepatitis C. I'm like one in 3 drug users, I think, gets it their first year of IV use. And I was completely reckless, right? So they do the blood draw. Then I go on to the tier. Now the inside looks like the inside of a doctor's office. It's like the green leather chairs and like a TV. There's like 2 sides. It's all co-ed. So
there's women in there.
There's women in there. There's like people getting naked and running around. It's wild, right? So first 5 minutes, I saw this kid crush this other guy's nose, blood everywhere. They come out. They keep it in the fridge. I call them the rhino darts, right? So they keep them in the fridge. It's like Thorazine, Benadryl, and something else. It's like a cocktail, right? Thorazine, Benadryl, and some other drug. But like they come up and hit you right in the meat of your neck, and they'll put you out, dude. And you're out. They wheel you in a restraints chair, so you're strapped here, your legs. They wheel you into a padded room, and you're there for at least 5 hours, and you're just slumped, right? So. And that was a maximum security restraints policy hospital. So it was like, you'd see these maniacs like starting to get agitated and get up, and they would remember the chair and they'd sit back down. I watched it all the time. So like it was really a calm place for the most part compared to other places, right? Because they actually enforced the stuff there. Day 2, I went up and they were like, Durkin, noon meds. And I walk up. They hand me this bucket of pills. It was like a Dixie cup full. I'm like, I don't even take noon meds. What is it? I go, I take nighttime meds. I thought it was like vitamins or something. She's like, listen, you take those. You got to take those. And if you don't, they'll shoot you up with the drugs if you don't take the pills. So I take it. I go back to my bed. And you remember The Walking Dead? Do you remember that zombie that was like crawling on the ground? I had buckets of drool coming out of my mouth. That's a side effect of some of those meds, right? And I'm crawling up there. My heart's beating out of my chest. They gave me the wrong person's meds. Whoever that person was psycho. So, Vernon, I've spoke about this on other shows. It's got this sadistic, you're around a bunch of killers. Like Daddy's Little Girl was one, right? Daddy's Little Girl was like this Ukrainian or Russian type, somebody from Eastern Europe or something. Western Europe, I don't know. But she was like Russian or Ukrainian or something. And she had a shirt on that said, Daddy's Little Girl, pink shirt. This kid comes up to me and he smoked the chief of police in his town. That's what he was there for. But he was like halfway normal. He was one of the only ones. He comes up, he goes, you want to know what she's in here for? And I said, yeah, well, what is it? This is like my first week in the pod, right? And he's like, he goes, well, her toddlers were in the bathtub and God told her to put a piece of plywood over the bathtub, and she stood on that as they were fighting for their life. And she murdered them. And she was let off on an NGRI, and she was not guilty, and she was in the hospital. And then, there was an organ player up there, and he was this black dude, and he was a guy who killed like 10 prostitutes from Louisiana all the way to Texas. And his MO, and this is how they found the body count, is he'd hit them in the head with a bowling pin, and he would shove a dead bird in their mouth, Bill. And that's how they found how many people he killed, is because that's how he would leave them. So you got Daddy's Little Girl, and you've got the Satanist in the organ player, right? He's a Satanist playing the organ in our church chapel. He's like Antoine LaVey in there, dude. I mean, he's creepy. They somehow finagled or paid. I don't know how they did it, but someone allowed them to sneak off. And Daddy's little girl and the Satan organ player had a serial killer baby behind the walls of Vernon. I was there. They ended up yes, they ended up moving the guy, and they ended up taking the baby and putting it in state custody. Could you imagine? And that's real. I was there, and I saw it with my own 2 eyes.
And most likely, those types of people will never be released, right?
No, because, well, there's some like Andrea Yates who drowned her 5 kids. She could already be out right now, but the story is she's in Austin. She was at Vernon where I was at, but there's so many threats on her life from the public for what she did. They keep her in there for her own safety against the public, and that's what. Because she's still in there right now. And there's some people, a lot of people never leave the state hospital system. I had to prove my sanity before I could be released. So I beat the case. I got no criminal record, but now I've got a whole nother mountain. So I'm at Vernon, and I'm like, okay. After about 2 months, I passed the danger review board. They were like, this guy's like not even crazy. So they moved me to San Antonio. You step down, less restrictive hospital, no restraints policies. But when you lift those restraints policies, the violence was off the chain. Like you'd be watching TV, girl would come up and just bash your nose in because she thought she heard voices telling her to do it, like crazy stuff. There's no help for mentally ill people at state hospitals. See, really, they get $1,150 a day per patient. It's a pill mill where they you. It's chow in the morning, breakfast meds, lunch meds, dinner time meds, bedtime meds. And I never once saw a doctor, not one time, walk out onto any of the floors to offer any kind of treatment. There was no groups. There was none of that. There was arts and crafts. They drug you and sit you like a piece of meat in front of a TV, and they make buku dollars. So people don't really leave the state hospital system because it is a massive scam. It's like you get $200 a day for a prisoner in jail. You get $1,000 plus a day for the people in the state hospital, and around and around we go. I mean, that's its own show, right? So I'm in there. I'm totally healed, Bill. And I'm like, I meet this maniacal doctor. It's like she took pleasure out of taking the wind out of my sails. And I remember, and this is all in the book in a chapter called Dark Days Asylum Nights, Bill, and it could be its own fucking movie. It's like a super long chapter, and it's a roller coaster ride like it was in real life, okay? So I'm in there. I based all of the book on real life stories I experienced. So I'm in there, and she sits me down. This is like my first week at San Antonio, and she's like, 30 days, Mr. Turkin. She's like, the average safety evaluation on felony 1 takes 3.5 to 5 years. And I went, what? I'm like, how am I going to live in hell for 3.5 to 5 years? I'm like, this is like the hallowed screams of the mad all night long. One of my roommates was a transgender who sat on the edge of the bed with long stringy hair with like women's clothing on, with his hand in his head, and he all night long. I had to learn. My mother would be on the phone. She'd be crying. Patrick, they're going to kill you in there. And I'm like, Ma, calm down. I'm like, it's just so-and-so. You get used to this craziness, right? I was on 9 medications that I didn't need. All of a sudden, my junk stopped working, Bill, because of the drugs they had me on. I felt like I was on chemotherapy.
Yeah, there's all these side effects that's hitting you, right?
Yeah. Screw them people, man, because they knew I was normal too. They knew it. And I went in there and I marched in. I had this really cool black doctor, though, he was my main doctor at San Antonio. And I marched in there. I'm like, I ain't taking these pills no more. No, he thinks I'm a crazy person. Right? And he's like, well, why should I take you off the pills? And I go, listen, man. I was on meth for like 2.5 years before this crime happened. I go, I was way out there. I go, when I was in jail, I got healed. I go, I'm completely normal. I don't need this stuff. I go, I'm not taking them anymore. I go, I have ED. I was like, I can't breathe. I gained like 80 pounds like overnight because that's like the average weight gain because of the pills and the food they give you and everything.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Now, if I even raised my voice, it was another 6 months added on for a safety evaluation. Any aggressive behavior, it's called a 46C in the state of Texas. There's B, who's awaiting trial, and if you beat your case, it's C. Very rare. It was like me and one other person. So I'm there, and he listened to me, and he heard me out. See, there's God's hand on my life again, okay? He listens to me, and I told him, and he's like, you were on. He goes, what? He goes, you shouldn't even be here. He goes, this was a big mistake. They called a social worker. I'm freaking out. I'm like, they're going to overturn my case and send me to prison. So I get on the phone with Scorsese. He's like, relax. He's like, they can't do nothing. Double jeopardy, Patrick.
Yeah, they can't charge you same thing twice.
No, but it sent them into a panic because they're like, what happened in the court? Oh, my God. So now I'm like, okay, I start to get this feeling like the tide's turning, right? So I start keeping names and dates and times and journals, right? It was like if Superman and Lex Luthor had a baby. I became this like heroic, maniacal character that I was like, you know what? I'm going to take these bastards on. Because a guy would piss his pants and he would sit in the corner because of the client's rights, right? They can't make you take a shower or change. So people would sit in their own crap and feces and piss for like 90 days, stains all over their jeans. They would stink. These are mental patients with the mind of children being abused. Assaults like you have never seen. Now, patient-on-patient crime is not prosecuted, Bill. So the cops will show up and take a report. But in order for someone to be charged, that victim has to get out, be released, get their human rights as a United States citizen restored again upon release, because you have no rights in there. You're a ward of the state. Then you'd have to go down to the police station and press charges. Most crimes that go on in San Antonio State Hospital and many others all over the country are never prosecuted. Okay, because those people are not well enough to remember the crime when they get out 2, 5, 10 years later. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw a woman almost be beat to death by this man from Corpus Christi. He was a violent criminal. And I watched him walk out the doors after he did this too. He beat her almost to death. He was booting her right directly in the face, blood everywhere. She was in a wheelchair for about a month after that. Now I'm keeping names, dates, and times, right? And I'm keeping journals and everything in detail. One day, everyone's pounding on the windows. This is where it really started getting interesting. This is where like I started to know who I was in the eyes of God and how powerful you are when you have God's hand on your life. I remember I raised my voice and I started screaming. I snapped. Like I would have to go into a happy place just to stay sane with all the insane talk about murder and all these things, child abduction. I mean, from the delusions, right? So I snapped and I raised my voice and I was freaking out. And this lady, this nurse, this is where it all took a turn. The nurse comes up to me. She goes, Durkin, I'm drugging you. And I'm like, I sat down and I'm like, I just screwed up bad. I'm like, this is going to be in my deal. She's like, and if you don't take the pills, she's like, I'm going to shoot you up with them. And she walked up to the nurse's station and I was like, my heart sank. She comes back, dude. And it was like the spirit of God came upon her. And she's like, Mr. Durkin. Now everybody knows that I'm not crazy. They know I'm there by mistake, right? She goes, I know that you're not even supposed to be here. And I know that it's really hard to be in this environment. She goes, I'm going to give you one chance to calm down. And if you calm down, I won't put this in the file and I won't give you the meds. I said, yes, ma'am. And then she turned around. And this is why like my life's like a movie. She turned around and she started walking away and she stops and pivots and goes, and if you don't like the things the way that they are in here, Mr. Durkin, I suggest you write a letter. And if you do, I'll take it up to the White House personally. She walked away. Now, the White House was this big administrative building at San Antonio State Hospital. And I bet you it's still there, alive and well. This is in 2020, Bill. Okay. And it's where all the top brass of the hospital reside. Where one doctor has so much power that no matter what your crime is, with a stroke of a pen, he can set you free. Okay. I'm facing a 99-year psych hold. They can keep you for the maximum term of your felony one crime until you prove your sanity, until they say you're safe to go back to society. Now, if you screw up and they want to keep you, they can keep you for the rest of your natural life. I sat down and I had like 4 pieces of scrap paper and a pen, and I wrote a 4-page letter by the power of the Holy Spirit in 5 minutes that ultimately set me free. Okay? That's where I realized the power of the spoken word and the power of the pen can set you free and take you around the world and change people's lives. And I wrote that letter and I gave it to her, and she actually took it to the White House, and they actually read a letter from a madman. And what they found inside, I said, I used to be in business. I became a drug addict after I lost my family, but I'm very smart and I'm well-spoken. And I said, I've seen this, and that. And I named off all these big incidents they didn't want to come to light. Now, I had read the client's rights handbook about 100 times at this point. My ma was still alive. We had this turbulent, crazy relationship for all my life. I mean, the childhood trauma and stuff. I mean, I drank over that woman for 25 years. God made it so that she was the only human being on earth that was walking through my incarceration with me. And we fell into this beautiful friendship and restored everything. My mom was really mentally ill too, but the way that she could, we restored everything. And she was sending me money and huge care packages full of chocolates and chips and everything, because it's different than prison in there, right? Yeah. So what did I have? I had money. Right. I had money.
He was advocating for you on the outside, right?
There was nothing she could do. I was trapped. This was on me. I was like, Lord, I prayed to Jesus Christ. I said, this is me and you against this evil, corrupt state hospital system. And I said, by the power, I saw what you just did in a courtroom. He literally went before me and defeated the state of Texas in an armed robbery case where they had me on camera. My God can do anything, and he's unstoppable, and he's so big. These people became my enemy, and I said, he will crush these people for me, and I wasn't wrong. And I had faith that he would do this. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take these bastards on, and we're going to get out of this place. This ain't going to be no 3.5 to 5 years. We're going to get out now. So I wrote the letter. She took it up there. Now, I read that client's rights handbook, okay, and I found a loophole where you can get a cell phone inside the state hospital system as long as you take out the cameras, Bill. So I had my little Irish ma in Myrtle Beach go down and send one in, and it was in my chart and it was in my file, and they kept the charger behind the nurse's station, and I would just go up and have them charge it. Now I had Facebook, I had Google, I had YouTube, I had a phone. I just couldn't like video call, but I had access to the outside world. So I had a voice all of a sudden. Big mistake. I guarantee you can't have one now. Because that was the tool that set me free. See, God will bring you everything you need when he has you on a mission. But I was walking through these doors, right? Like that letter I wrote it caused pandemonium. There was a secret meeting up at the White House, and all of a sudden the hospital's in a panic and they start moving me around because the Crockett unit was violent. They're like, Durkin, you're moving. And the techs really liked me. They knew they would feed you all this information, right? So the guy's like, listen, we're moving you to Fannin. Now that's an all male unit with nothing but murderers. And I thought it was a punishment for the letter. In reality, that unit had less occurrences than anything. I had to do 6 months in San Antonio State Hospital before they could legally release me into the public. But that letter ultimately was what set me free. They were like, get this guy out of here. He's got a phone. He's got all these like terrible things that are happening. They were building by chance, and I mean by God, a $350 million addition to the hospital on the same property, funded by the police department's University of Texas. I was Googling and finding it out. I mean,
you would have wrecked all of it if you exposed all this corruption.
The press. The bad press. So I became a champion for the people. I saw all of this crime that was happening to these mentally challenged people. There was a involving a very evil man who was so evil. He was a little old black man. He had an ankle monitor on inside. He was a super villain. His court documents, it's in the book, this part. I looked him up. He had violent fantasies and thoughts every waking moment that he was alive. His own mother wrote and said, don't ever let him out. He was so crazy, they took him from prison and put him in the state hospital, and he had an ankle monitor on inside the joint. Because if he walked over the wall, there was no way they were going to take chances, right? So he was patients, bribing them with sodas and chips and candy, and he would take them into the bathroom and whatever. And one of the kids had HIV. The hospital covered that up, you see? So I bribed one of the victims to give me, I was like, I'll give you 4 sodas, 5 bags of M&Ms, whatever it took. And the kid gave me his sister's phone number, and I called her on the hospital cordless phone. And I said, hey, listen, I'm not crazy. You're going to have to believe me. I go, I'm a patient in here, but I want you to do this. I want you to call up front and ask about this incident. They're going to have to tell you. She had already the permission to talk to his people. Like, she signed the waivers and stuff. It was his family. She called, and then like Adult Protective Services swooped in. I wrote 12 letters in all. Everywhere they moved me, Bill, God would have something major popped up. And I told him, I was like, as long as I am here, I'm going to be a major problem for your evil, corrupt system. And I was like, it will behoove you to release me. So this was the final straw. I sent you the video of this. You could play it if you want. This is on YouTube. They were scrambling to release me, but they couldn't. I just didn't know it yet. And I saved this kid's foot. His dad was a 1% biker. I bribed him, got his number, caused all these different problems. They literally hated me at this point. I was like public enemy number 1, and they could have kept me the rest of my life. And I'd walk through these doors, and I'd go back to my room, and I'd sit down. And I'd go, what the did I just do? I'm like, they're never going to let me out of here. But every time something happened, I had the courage to face it and walk through the fire, right? This kid comes up to me a week before he threatens to kill his family, okay? He threatens to unalive his family. They cover that up. And he comes up to me, and I'm outside underneath an oak tree in the Fannin unit of San Antonio State Hospital. Remember it like it's yesterday. And he walks up to me and he says, I'm going to go get this 20 grand, man. He goes, I'm going to hop the wall and go get this 20 grand. I'm like, fuck you. Like, you're so crazy, right? Like you hear crazy stuff. You just fluff it up. All of a sudden, the whistles blow.
Who walked away from the San Antonio State Hospital. He's been missing for more than 24 hours now, but he's not the first patient to wander away from that community from that psychiatric facility. Eyewitness News reporter Marvin Hurst has more on the disturbing disappearances and the rising number of visits the hospital gets from police.
The Texas Department of Health and Human Services says once they've alerted the authorities about a missing patient, they've done all they could do. San Antonio police say mental patient Christian Olivo Fariel made what they described as an unauthorized departure from the hospital. They have not seen the convicted felon since. He's been in jail for drug charges, forgery, evading arrest, burglary, and an unauthorized use of a vehicle.
Pandemonium breaks out. The kid, he got 2 big, tall guys with mental illness. He formed a ladder, and he hopped over their shoulders and walked right off the wall through an apartment complex because they didn't have the gate closed at San Antonio State Hospital, walked through a playground at that place, and he walked right off the property, and there was an escaped mental patient on the loose in San Antonio. Now, they told the cops, but guess what? They didn't tell the media. A few hours go by, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, wow, nothing's on the news, huh? All of a sudden, the Holy Spirit tells me, tell the news. So I message Ken's 5 San Antonio, right? Here's Lex Luthor coming alive. And I was like, hey, do y'all want a story about an escaped mental patient? Like, he's a piece of trash anyway. He threatened to kill his wife and a little kid. And the girl, the victim is calling the unit while this is going on, looking for him. He ain't here right now.
What?
So he's going to look for her. So I'm there. And whoever's on the other end of this deal goes, you can't have a phone in the state hospital. So quick thinking, the Holy Spirit again, I dropped a GPS pin from inside the Fannin unit. And whoever, they were like, and you can't fake that too easy, right? So they were like, well, what's this guy's name? We're going to call and verify the story. I told him his name and everything. They called up to the state hospital. They verified that he escaped. That night, they ran like this bad hatchet piece on the hospital. And the gates got closed, the alarms, and like the techs, everybody was furious with me. That was the first time I was scared. Like, I slept with my phone underneath my chest, face down. I was like, I can't let them take my phone and everything now because I got to communicate. I got to be able to fight my way out of this in case things get rough, right?
Yeah.
Like with words, you know? So the next morning, they ran this expose. It's the one it'll be like, looks like black and white on YouTube. If you YouTube San Antonio State Hospital escape, it's one that looks like a grayed out, like it's the front sign of the building. It's got like 4,000 views because I always tell everybody to look it up, right? San Antonio State Hospital escape. That's my roommate. That's him on there. It was a hatchet piece about all the escapes that they never report, all the patient crime that's not prosecuted, the abuse, everything that goes on in there. And they blasted it all over the news, right? So on Monday morning, they ended up catching the guy like 4 days after he left, right? And escape charges in Texas start at 20, by the way. He was an idiot.
So, but they'll charge you with escape from a hospital like you escaped from prison, right?
Yeah, the hospital will tell you, oh, they're not prisoners, they're patients, but try to escape from one. You're getting an escape charge. You can't leave. This isn't drug rehab. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So this kid leaves. He's arrested or whatever. On Monday morning, I had this job for $7 a day. They have to give you a job. I'm wiping the walls down with a wipey. Like they just give you these mindless jobs just to say that they do it for humanitarian law purposes. So my social worker, I mean, she hated me. She had a stack of files like this big in her hand. It's all my paperwork from all the problems I caused and everything, all my medical records and everything. She goes, Mr. Durkin, she goes, my job is to get you out of here today. And like, there's a lot of red tape and stuff, but the last day, Martin Scorsese, it's a Friday. I'm supposed to go to court. I know this is a long interview, but it's a good ending to the story. So I'm sitting there and I'm just picturing him as in his tweed suit. I got my bags packed. I'm supposed to go home on a Friday. 4:00 in the afternoon comes on. Now they're going to send me home in a transport van, which they don't do for anybody. They're just like, get him the fuck out of San Antonio. They're going to drive me like 2.5 hours back to Corpus. No housing set up, which they've never done that. You have to have a place to go. They're just like, get them out. Homeless shelters, for some reason, wouldn't even take me, Bill.
You don't have probation or anything.
Okay, so there's this guy in the book called Dr. No Good. And he hated me. He was the final doctor. He was my final boss. I had to beat to get out. So on a felony 1 NGRI, once you're released, there's a final step. You're supposed to see you're supposed to see a social worker once a week for the rest of your natural life. You're supposed to see a psychiatrist once a month for the rest of your natural life, monitored on all your meds and everything. But I wasn't on any. The doctor wrote it. That doctor who took me off the meds, he died 2 weeks after he took me off those meds, but they already signed it. It was like his last thing he did on earth was get me on. Now, if I was still on the meds, I probably wouldn't have got out like as fast as I did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they changed my diagnosis from bipolar 1 to substance abuse. They admitted that I'm not crazy. It says I have no axis 1 diagnosis of any kind. I'm not aggressive. They changed everything to get me the hell out. So like they didn't even mention that I caused them any problems or anything. They just wanted me gone. They didn't know I was going to write a book and talk about it all over the world, even though I told them I was going to do it before I left. Nobody comes on Friday. Scorsese goes to the judge. Now, him and the judge were like this. They were like friends. So he looks at the doctor's plan. He goes, we're not going for this. And she goes, well, why don't you take the weekend and you go draw up your own order and I'll take a look at it and I'll sign it Monday. They're like buddies. So he draws this order up where I got to go sign up for some outpatient drug treatment program. And that's it. No aftercare, nothing. And he gives it to the judge and she signed it. And then on Monday morning, I was dropped off by a transport van downtown Corpus Christi, Texas. I was a completely man with no criminal record. He looked at me and goes, you see that high rise? He goes, you go up in there, sign up for the drug treatment. He goes, you don't even have to go in and finish it. He goes, just sign up for it. He goes, I put it in there on purpose. And he goes, it's like the crime never happened. So tell me like God's not real. I have a corporate job today. Okay. Now, that was on December 16th, 2019. It was almost 2020. 2 weeks later, on January 1st of 2020, I started writing Fire and Ice, the Bible. I don't have any books, so I'm going to hold that up. But that's the cover of the book. And I sat down and I wrote for 6 months straight. And I wrote that book when I was homeless and clean. And that book kept me alive. It gave me new purpose. And I figured if the power of the pen and the spoken word could set me free from a 99-year psych hold in a mental institution for the criminally insane, then the power of the pen and the spoken word could take me all over the world and change people's lives and set the captives free for the Lord Jesus Christ. And I wasn't wrong. And I wrote that book. It's 716 pages. The lady who edited it, just by chance, was from Corpus. And one day I asked, and I said, hey, I'm like, you work at so-and-so place. I'm like, my dad used to work there. Remember he was an accountant?
Yeah.
I can barely spell, Bill. So she's going to edit this book for free, right? And I asked her, and she's like, well, what department was he in? I said he was in accounting. She goes, oh my God, what's his name? And I told her, she goes, oh my God. She goes, I took your dad's job over at the hospital when he had spinal cancer. She's a real person in real life. That's a true story. Fire and Ice, the Meth Bible, between the audio version and the paperback version and digital, it's been read in 10 countries by thousands of people all over the world. The platform has gotten millions of views. We've helped so many people get clean off of it. And now and everything that's riddling the streets. And really, my life is dedicated to this mission that God has me on. And I am very grateful to be alive. I didn't have not one bloodborne disease, no hepatitis C, no HIV. I didn't have any STDs of any kind. My liver was destroyed from alcoholism and my spleen was enlarged. And by the time I left incarceration, I had a miracle healing of my spleen and my liver, completely living a normal life. I lost all the weight. I was healed from psychosis that most people don't. I lived through car accidents, drug addiction, trauma, and hell. And I give all glory to the Lord Jesus Christ, and God is real, and he can deliver you from it.
Let me ask you this. When you left the hospital, right?
Yeah.
What made you not run back to the drugs?
I was walking down the main drag in Flower Bluff, which is like the capital of Texas. I'm surprised there's not a hole in the ozone above that town from all the cooks there.
Probably
but I remember I remember walking down the street. This is a line from the last chapter of the book called The Open Road. And I remember walking down the street and I was like, the streets feel different because I am not the same. God changed me from the inside out. I mean, it would have been easy because I lived in poverty for a long time and I'm writing a second book now. I came to Washington State. I'm tucked in the mountains right now, about to write my second book. And it's about a spiritual quest and journey from being homeless and walking through being homeless and clean, you know, getting your career back, everything, you know what I mean? And really the hardships that are in recovery too, because I've probably been through more horrific events in recovery than I was when I was in addiction, to be honest with you. But you're stronger than you've ever been. You're in a new shape. You're a new tool for God to use in a different way. And once you get through all of that stuff, you can make it through anything, man. That's
why I'm going to have you on again, and we're going to talk about your life after all this situation with going to jail and the hospital and what you've been up to now. We'll get into that. I'm sure that one will be like about 2 hours.
That's the second book, and it's called Deep Washington. You know, I'm a 5-time corporate award winner. I've broken all kinds of records. I've traveled around, told this story all over. I do shows with Jerry Marzinski in like France and South Africa. It's wild, dude. You live a life beyond your dreams when you start walking with God in recovery. It's crazy.
Yeah, hey, I've done it, man. I'm trying to show people that it's possible. And,
thank you.
It is. It's amazing what you accomplish.
Right. And you know, you can get Fire and Ice, the Bible, on Amazon.com. And I made it so that if you have Amazon Prime, you can read the digital for free. If you've never had Audible, you can get the audio version for free. So I wanted to make it available to people who didn't have a lot of money. The paperback's so big, it costs like $26.99. You know, but
I'll put a link in the description of this video for the book.
Right. And show that picture of the accident, because you can't write that stuff. God, they call him the author of life in the book of Acts 3:15. Peter called him the author of life. You can't write this stuff. It's better than Hollywood, baby.
It is, man. You could do a whole series on
this.
It's pretty wild, man.
I'm waiting for Netflix to call. That's how I wrote the book. Every chapter was supposed to be a 1-hour episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a damn good Netflix series, you know?
They'll have to edit a lot out.
Yeah, they probably would.
Yeah, unless it's triple X, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be real careful reading the book if you got under a year clean. But thanks for having me on, Bill. This was a fun interview. I'm sorry if I talked so much, but it's so intricate of a story.
Yeah, nah, you broke it down pretty well. It was very interesting.
I mean, I can't believe, I'm just grateful to God that I'm alive and I'm free and I'm not dying in a hospital bed somewhere from a disease, you know. I love you, brother. Thanks for having me on the show. I'll come on anytime you want.
Definitely. I wish you nothing but success in the future. Is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to before we go?
Oh, man, just my fiance Loops, man, the co-host of my show on Boston, on the 2%ers podcast, Meet with Boston and Loops. That's it.
Hell yeah, go subscribe, and I'll put a link for his book in the description of this video. I appreciate you all watching. If you like this show, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. And if you don't like this show, too bad. Start your own podcast. Peace. Thanks, man.
Thanks, brother.